Welcome back to Dragon Army Books. My name is Dustin, and this is going to be a review of The Bone Shard Daughter by Andrea Stewart. It is a book that was first published in 2020, and I slept on it. I knew of it. People were talking about it. It sounded interesting. It looked interesting, so much so that I bought it at the bookstore, and it's just been sitting on my bookshelf for a year or two, which is unacceptable. Here at the end of 2022, I thought, you know what, I should get around to it. What really happened was Orbit wanted to see if I wanted an arc of the third book in the series, and I did, but I had to quickly read the first two in order to read the third, of course. So I decided it was about time to pick this book off my bookshelf and give it a go. The Bone Shard Daughter tells the story of Lyn, who is the daughter of the Emperor and the wielder of the Bone Shard magic, more on that later, and Jovis, who is really just like a pirate turned swashbuckler turned child rescuer turned rebel. He goes through a lot of incarnations in this book. The story focuses on those two disparate stories, while you've got two other POV characters as well in Falu and Renami, who are lovers but are on different sides of this brewing animosity between like the royalty and the commoners who, I mean, this is no new story, right? The commoners who are being treated poorly, who are poor and without food, without much, and then you've got Falu, who is the daughter of the local governor, so she's doing well, but she's in love with a commoner, and you've got the tension between those. All of these stories kind of take place separately in this world, but by the novel's end, a lot of these stories have met. A lot of these characters have met with one another, and really, in large portion, this book is kind of the precursor to what is going to come in the rest of the story and the rest of the world. This is the brewing tension, and I would imagine the second book is going to be the explosion of all of that tension. You've got a tritagonist of sorts. Is that how you say that word? You've got a third protagonist classification of sorts in another POV chapter. And this is a character called Sand. It's not this character's real name, but she, along with all of the other people that she's working with, have no recollection of who they are and how they got to this island. They just know that they're picking melons or mangoes off of trees every day. They have all these names like sand and grass and wind and things like that. But one day she fell from a tree, hit her head, and is slowly regaining her memories, and so she's leading an uprising of her own. Surrounding all of this are these animal-like constructs that are imbued with this bone shard magic controlled only by the Emperor, that are like the guards of society that kind of keep order, but they're also terrifying. They are like part machine, part man, part animal, and they've got, like the head of a wolf, but the body of a bear, and all of these things. And so that they're maintaining order around. So you've got this ominous, oppressive regime, and you've got this rebellious uprising trying to put to death all of these constructs while usurping the throne from the Emperor and to try to put control back into the hands of the people. There's a lot to love here with the world building and the pacing and the magic system and the characters. Let's talk about the magic system, the Bone Shard magic. That is the premier and only magic system, as not the only one, I guess. There's kind of two things going on. One, the primary magic system is this Bone Shard magic that the Emperor and his bloodline can control. And so Lyn, one of our main characters, she can manipulate the bone shards that are placed within these animal-like constructs, and she can write code into them so that she can tell these constructs what to do. And she's learning that, though. She's young, she's kind of an apprentice. Her and her kind of like somewhat brother are both being trained by the Emperor, but Bayan, the boy that is being trained, is the one that is favored by the emperor, and so she's kind of left to her own devices to figure out this bone shard magic by herself. So she's gaining different keys from the emperor's studies, having them duplicated by the blacksmith so that she can get in there and read and practice and figure out this bone shard magic. So we still don't know tons about this other than the emperor and his bloodline, his family, can manipulate these bone shards that are, I didn't even say this. These bone shards, what are these? These are taken from the people of the land. This is such a huge thing. They're bone shards that, when at a certain age, they're taken from the skull of humans, and then they are kept. And when they are used, they take the life force from the humans that the bone shards are from. It's crazy, and so. She's learning all of these things and figuring out that bone shard magic. And then Jovis himself, he meets this cat-like, otter-like creature early on when an island is submerged and he's trying to flee, and an animal hops on board. But this animal continues to grow, and there's some kind of magical link between the two that provides Jovis with some extraordinary abilities that we don't know much about yet. So all of this is still kind of growing, and we're still kind of learning this magic system. And the characters were all interesting enough. I typically don't gravitate towards a character or two in a multi-POV book. When there are 4, 5, 6 characters, there's typically 2 or 3 that I really enjoy, and 1 or 2 that I'm like, can we just get back to the others? That never happened here, which was a big surprise for me. I enjoyed each of the chapters, and I was never trying to get back to a different one. I enjoyed what was going on, and the chapters were all short enough that the pacing kept us moving, that the characters and what they were going through were pretty engaging. There is some kind of slowdown, I know, somewhere in the middle, which you typically have during books when the author, I feel like, is just trying to inflate their page count. But the pacing still felt normal, natural, and we weren't kept with any particular story for too long. And just when the rising action would happen, we'd move to another character before coming back. I thought it was good, and the thing that I liked most about this book are the mysteries. Virtually with each and every character, you've got these unknowns that you're slowly finding clues throughout the narrative that kind of build on top of each other, that help you to know a little bit more about either what this bone shard magic is, or who this character is, or what these memories, these lost memories are as they come back. You wonder, is this character, Sand in particular, is this character related to this person or connected to the story of this person? And you start to get these clues along the way. I love mysteries. In fact, when I'm not reading these kind of like epic fantasy novels, I tend to gravitate towards either crime thrillers or mysteries. And so when you've got a mysterious element that is a part of a fantasy novel and it's done well, like it's done here, I thoroughly enjoy that. There was, however, a slightly amateurish feel that I felt throughout the novel, and I can't exactly put a finger on one thing saying that this is what it was, but it did feel like a debut. And I don't know if it was, maybe sometimes it was like cropping up in the narrative, maybe sometimes it was cropping up in the dialogue, or in like sometimes the way that some characters would react or respond or just be completely okay with something, or just to move the narrative along, felt a little bit ham-fisted, which I don't use that lightly or much, but it just felt amateurish at times. It didn't take me out of the narrative, it didn't take me out of the novel, and it didn't take away my enjoyment, but it was something that I noticed throughout. And I would imagine, and I would hope, that as this series continue and as Stewart continues to write, that fades away and that's refined a little bit more, either through experience or through those that are on her team working with her to try to refine some of those things, the editors, to help her have a more refined novel, more reasonable reactions and responses, and some of the concluding events, some of the characters when they met or whatever, it was just like, okay, we're friends now. Yeah, like just to get to the end of the narrative, to get to the end of the novel, things just happened rather than maybe a little bit more naturally. And so that would be my only like setback in this novel, is that some of it feels like it is a debut novel, which it is, But none of that took away ultimately from all of the other things that I mentioned, which were done really well. All that being said, I gave this book 4 stars out of 5 on Goodreads, and I'm interested in reading the rest of the Drowning Empire series. The Bone Shard Emperor, wonder who that is already out. And the final book, I believe, in the trilogy, The Bone Shard War, is coming out soon. So I'm certainly going to read the entire trilogy, and I hope and expect and believe that it's only going to get better and better. But what did you think of The Bone Shard Daughter? Let me know in the comments down below. And as always, thank you so much for taking the time to watch and like this video. If you haven't yet, click subscribe, join the Dragon Army, and we'll see you in the next one.